You think royal funerals are somber, elegant affairs. But one medieval king turned his funeral into a horror show. His corpse became so grotesque that it literally exploded. This isn't fiction. It's a true story of death, decay, and disaster. Let's go back to the year 1087. The mighty William the Conqueror, King of England, lay dying. He was once a fierce warrior who won England at the Battle of Hastings. But in his final days, the conqueror was a broken man. Years of gluttony and illness had left him bloated and weak. Then came the accident that sealed his fate. During a campaign in Normandy, William's horse stumbled. The king was thrown forward, smashing his massive body against the saddle. The injury tore his insides open. His abdomen ruptured, leaving him in agony. For weeks, William lingered, his body swelling with infection. Medieval medicine had no cure. The once great king was bedridden, unable to move. His court began to whisper. The conqueror smelled like death long before he died. On September 9th, 1087, William finally breathed his last. But that was not the end. It was only the beginning of the nightmare. According to chroniclers, chaos erupted the moment he died. Servants and nobles panicked, looting the palace and fleeing. His body was abandoned, bloated and rotting in the heat. Days passed before anyone dared to move him. By the time monks prepared the funeral, his corpse was a disaster, swollen, leaking, and almost impossible to handle. The monks struggled to fit William into his stone coffin, but the coffin was too small for his massive, swollen body. They pushed, they squeezed, they forced him inside, and that's when the horror happened. William's bloated stomach burst. His corpse exploded with a sickening crack. Gases, blood, and putrid fluids filled the church. The stench was so overwhelming that mourners fled in disgust. Imagine it, a king's funeral turned into a nightmare of rotting flesh. Priests gagged, candles flickered, and the holy ceremony collapsed. The conqueror of England had become a grotesque spectacle. His final legacy? The king who couldn't even rest in peace. Chroniclers describe the scene in haunting detail. The sound of the rupture, the flood of decay, the panic of the crowd. One monk wrote that the smell was unbearable for hours. Another claimed the church was desecrated by his very body. But William's death disaster wasn't just physical. It was symbolic of a kingdom in chaos. His sons were already fighting over the throne. Nobles turned against one another as the dynasty fractured. Even in death, William brought turmoil. His body, swollen with corruption, mirrored the corruption of his court. His empire began unraveling almost the moment he died. The horror of his funeral was a warning of darker days ahead, and William was not alone. Other royals shared the same grotesque fate. In 1774, King Louis XVIII of France also burst inside his coffin. In 1830, Pope Alexander VI's body swelled until it split open. Death, for the powerful, was often as dramatic as their lives. Embalming was primitive, coffins were ill-fitted, and decay was merciless. Bodies became unstable time bombs of gas and rot, and sometimes they went off at the worst possible moment. But William's case was the most infamous. The conqueror who reshaped Europe ended as a spectacle of decay. His funeral was supposed to glorify his reign. Instead, it became a story whispered with horror for centuries. Imagine the scene in that Norman church. Stained glass glowing in the sunlight, monks chanting prayers for the dead, and then the sickening pop of a royal corpse exploding. The air filled with the reek of rot. The faithful covered their faces, fleeing in terror. Priests abandoned the ceremony, too nauseated to continue. The conqueror's body turned the house of God into a charnel house. This is not the William you read about in textbooks, not the proud warrior, not the architect of empire, but a swollen, ruptured corpse. A man consumed by his own body's corruption. Even the ground seemed to reject him. The monks struggled to bury him properly. The coffin barely fit in the grave. The earth itself collapsed beneath the weight of the rotting king. For centuries afterward, legends surrounded his tomb, whispers of foul smells and restless spirits. People said William's soul wandered, disturbed by his chaotic burial. A conqueror in life, but cursed in death. So next time you hear about William the Conqueror, remember the truth textbooks leave out. Not just a king, not just a warrior, but the monarch who exploded at his own funeral. His reign began in blood at Hastings, and it ended in blood, rot, and horror in a church. Power could not save him. Legacy could not protect him. In the end, William's body told the real story, that even kings are flesh, and flesh always fails. From conqueror to corpse, his final act was a grotesque warning, a reminder that death conquers all.